Hey, what's going on, everybody? Hope all of you are doing well. So I finally that I cannot speak. I'm still tired, and I got my cup of coffee on the side, so I will be drinking that throughout this video. So I finally got my new phone. It's the Galaxy S23 FE, which is known as the Fan Edition. Loving this phone. It's got three cameras. You can film in not only just standard high definition, but you have 4K. You can do 30 frames per second. You can do 60 frames per second. You can even record in 8K. So that is awesome. And I also noticed the mic is really good. When I had done like a little test video last night, and the audio sounded really, really nice. It almost sounded like professional, like having a mic actually connected to the phone. So I thought that was pretty cool. So it should make my videos a little bit better moving forward. So I'm happy with that. Um, I wanted to talk about a few things. First and foremost, I want to thank everybody who, since the time I've gotten injured and I've made these life updates here and there, you guys have been so nice with the kind words. And I just like sharing with you guys what's going on, because the last thing I want to do is just, make videos and then just disappear for a while and then come back and explain what's going on. I don't like doing that, so I try to at least get a video out kind of explaining everything. So let's, go back to, before my injury. The job I was working at, I thought was great. Yes, it had its flaws, and I was getting frustrated with things. But that at that time, it was really motivating me to pursue other things. At that time, I was trying to work towards getting my LLC, so I can, really turn eBay into, a full time job, or get to that point. And during that time, as I was watching more YouTube videos, I was being inspired to put out more content. And now here we are. I think I'm at the halfway mark of hitting 600 uploads. And I'm at 200, no, I'm at 1225 when it comes to subscribers. So, definitely a lot of work, that's for sure. But, you know, at that time, that's what I was pushing towards. If you look back at last year, the job I had that I had been with for over a decade, I just got tired of all the abuse I was dealing with. Excuse me. So, with the situation that happened between me and my boss last year, to, get into that argument and for me to finally tell them and get somebody else to do it was something that I should have done a long time ago. Um, I think the timing I didn't like that the timing was literally 6 months within the beginning of the year. Or 6 months within the year. I would have rather it happen at the end of that year. I think that would have been a little bit easier on me, but that wasn't the case. And then when you kind of get that guilt after things like that happen where you try to go back, and I couldn't. They apparently supposedly have told me that I was falsifying my work hours, and they didn't realize this until after I was let go, which really there was no proof. After I got my union rep involved and there was a disconnect, yeah, they have no proof. They went by the guy I was working with, which is still weird because, if I was taking hours, so he. Because I mean, we were literally sitting next to each other when we were filling out our timesheets. So I know it was just BS. They. One thing I've learned with that previous job was the fact that if you don't kiss their ass, they basically have this personal vendetta against you. And I've seen it happen to other coworkers before I even ended up quitting. Um, yeah, they just they if you question how things are run, they really put it to you. And you can definitely tell that they're guilty of something and they're trying to hide something. That's all it is. Because you shouldn't have to retaliate when somebody is trying to question your motives, because you know how things work, and I do. And that's what a lot of the abuse I was getting personally was the fact that I was questioning things when something didn't seem right, or I would ask, they would change things on our contract without actually telling us. So when I'm so used to doing something over, 5, 6 years, and you change it without explanation, I need to know at least what's going on. There was a lack of communication, I will state that. So when I got let go back in June, the beginning of June of last year, that was a huge blessing in disguise for me. I had been contemplating, quitting or finding a way to get myself fired probably 2 to 3 years before last year. So, there was a lot that I was dealing with over there, and I just could not stand it. But at the same time, I was in a really bad place financially, so I knew I needed the money, and I couldn't afford it at the time. So eventually, things happened for the better. And now, since I've been gone, a lot of people I worked with since day one have left. People I met maybe in the past 5 to 6, 7 years have left, and now they're just struggling. It seems like they are struggling so bad. So to me, that's kind of karma. You're gonna treat your employees like garbage, then that's what you're gonna get. Um, then I started the most recent job. I started this back in January. I was actually told by my father, who I came across it, and told me to apply. And I did. And when they hired me, they were extremely impressed by my application due to the experience I had with the previous job before. And they, not too long after I had applied for that, I was getting a text message saying, "Hey, we want to do a phone interview the next day," and that was fantastic. So yeah, I get the phone call, and I talked to the person in charge. I don't know who it was. I don't know if it was HR or just somebody who deals with, like, applicants and things like that. But it went really well. And then, she was like, "Hey, here's what we have opening, and, send us the paperwork we need." Because I had to give them paperwork, because you have to, with these type of jobs, you got to show documents that you are disabled, because they have a quota that they have to meet, because they are a nonprofit organization that hires specifically people who are disabled. So they have to have the documents, copies of documents that they're eligible to be hired. They can't ask you. So they'll be like, "Hey, just with this situation, I think they can ask you." But yeah, did that, was, approved pretty quick. I wouldn't say approved, but, she was like, "Well, everything's good. You'll be getting a call soon." So, I got a call from the project manager himself. So this was right before January of this year. And I go, and mind you, this was the end of December. So I think actually it was like the 30th, I believe. So I go, I do my interview. And the great thing about the interview was, because, I believe it was like before New Year's Eve or so, and it might have been New Year's Eve. I'm not 100% sure on that. But when I went, the cool thing is because, that base was pretty much a down day, because due to that coming holiday, he let his employees go, you know, have the rest of the day off. Or no, I think he told them not to come in, because usually when I started working there, the one thing about that base was that when the day before a holiday, so whether it was a Friday or a Thursday, no matter what it was, the base was pretty much a ghost town. All the military was off. Some contractors were in, others took off. So when you couldn't really do anything, you can go home. So at that time, he told me, he was like, "Yeah, there was nothing was open." I told them to all just stay home, and I thought it was pretty cool. So it was easier for us to do the interview, and he was impressed. He was so impressed that he actually offered me a little bit better than what I had applied for, because I think I had applied for a part-time job, like in the evenings, but he was asking, "Would you prefer a day or night?" I was like, "Look, I prefer a full-time day." because I have a hard time at night, you know, I wouldn't be able to stay up and drive and things like that. That's a lot. So he was like, "Hey, I'll offer you full time. This is how much you're gonna get paid. This is the hours," and it worked out. Yes, when I started, there was a lot of issues, and it wasn't on me; it was on them. They didn't train me like they were supposed to, because when you start a different job, yes, I have the experience, but how they do their cleaning, especially with their buildings, is completely different than what I was doing on the other base. And both bases are what, less than probably less than 30-minute drive between the two, give or take, depending on traffic. But I think there's a little about 30 minutes towards each other, or 25. So what they were doing at the big base I was working on was completely different what they were doing on this base. So they didn't train me. They stated that they hired me due to my experience, but later on I started to realize that wasn't the case. There was just too many issues, and I was getting frustrated because it was like, you my experiences being on a crew with people, they day one they were already trying to work me on to a crew and a route without any proper training. I've never been on this base, so I didn't know where to go, or things like that. They were having me do like these large buildings by myself. It's like, well, why would you train me to do this when you should be training me with a crew? Yeah, you could show me the building, the restrooms, what needs to be done, and then maybe start fresh that Monday. And it was becoming pretty terrible. The people I was working with on the crew, they didn't give proper training for me to work with them, or vice versa. So, of course, you can't ask what their disability is. I kind of observe it, but the thing is they just threw us all together with no proper training. So I had to ask these guys majority of the time, where to go and all this, because they were at this job longer than I had been. Um, I'm just a new guy. So that was frustrating. And then, get adding more buildings later on when I have no idea where I'm going, having to cover for people and not get things done. And then they start to see it. Then they want to ask what helps me make my life a little bit better. I needed help. Mind you, I went from a crew to just me and one guy. And it was getting frustrating because, you know, the guy I was working with was part time. Excuse me. Now, there would have been another guy who was full time with me, but since the day he got hired, he would hardly show up. I think he was dealing with a lot, and eventually they let him go. So eventually it was just me and the other guy I was working with before I got hurt, and that was the guy I worked with at the previous company before. He had left way before I had. So yeah, by the time I knew it, I was down to just me and one guy. He was part time, I was full time. When it came down to the days where it was going to be a down day, I would need his help on the day he was off, because he'd be off on Wednesdays. So I would need his help to cover, that Monday through Thursday, because I knew Friday was going to be a down day. And you know, even if it was a down day and something was open, I could still handle it. I wouldn't get everything done, because by the time, a lot of that stuff would have been closed, because people usually come in, maybe work a couple hours, and they're gone. Then I would say the week leading up to me getting injured was pretty ridiculous. So the guy that I worked with, he missed a lot of days. It was a mixture of, he, had to take care of some, things with like his apartment and things like that. And then, you know, there was some type of an excuse afterwards. And it just got to the point I was getting frustrated, because I was working by myself with no help. And I was getting exhausted. I was getting tired. I was getting frustrated. I'll be honest. I didn't even fully complete. With working on a big base, you can get things done in a quicker way without, you don't have to put a whole lot of work into it. Eventually, you're able to cut corners, and I was able to do that. but at the same time, you're still tired. I mean, you still got a lot to do. And I had to cover his buildings too because once he got on my route, we had to do some of his as well. So that's what we were doing, you know. So working by myself doing my buildings and then his buildings, just it was a lot. And you know, the week before I got hurt, he was out. I think he was out that whole week, or there was the rest of the week he was out. I think he came in for like 1 or 2 days. Then that following week I got hurt. He was out completely. He wasn't even there. So Wednesday wasn't just a normal day. Everything seemed fine. I did what I needed to, but it wasn't until that Thursday I got up in the middle of the night to use the restroom and just I felt my right arm felt off. It was like I had no strength in that arm. I was getting numbness in my fingers. I don't know if I woke up with stress, anxiety, you know, maybe it was just a bad case of carpal tunnel because I have broken my wrists and they didn't heal properly, or at least one of them didn't heal properly, so I do get issues in both of them. So I thought maybe that's what it was. Excuse me. I go back to sleep. I get up the next morning and same issue. So I called out. And then I go in Friday, still had the same issue. I had bought like a carpal tunnel brace for my hand, and I was still getting the numbness. It was coming and going, and I just didn't feel good. Like I was sweating more. I thought maybe I was dehydrated, so I was getting water, Gatorade, but I just did not have any energy. I just felt like something was off, you know, not feeling good. Um, and even like a couple of my coworkers, one that I consider like my family, that I got him the job at the company I was working for. He and I worked with him at the other place too. Him and the guy he was working with, they were both like, "Yeah, you don't look too good." So that Friday came in, you could definitely tell it was off. Um, did I say it was Thursday? No, that was Friday because I called out Thursday. I left Friday. I had to do this like 3-story building by myself, mind you, and I couldn't. I just didn't have the energy. So I went to the office boss. I said, "There's something off. I just don't know what it is." I said, "I don't feel good. I have no energy." I said, "My whole right side just feels like there's something wrong." So I thought maybe it was just dealing with a bad carpal tunnel, maybe dehydrated, but I wasn't. I don't know. That was just my guess, because I have been dehydrated before, and I've dealt with issues with my body like my broken wrists and things like that, and I've dealt with carpal tunnel before. So I get home, then my assistant project manager calls. He's like, "Is everything okay?" I said, "I don't know. I need to make a doctor's appointment soon because I was explaining everything." Excuse me. He's like, "Well, if we need to put you on medical leave, we can." So I was like, I don't know. I'm gonna see how I am Monday. That Monday came around and I could not even move my elbow. My whole forearm, I cannot move my elbow out. My elbow was stuck. Um, I can definitely tell there was something off, no energy. I couldn't move it without hurting. So I called out. I get a call from HR. They put me on medical leave. I make a doctor's appointment for that Friday. So I think that was the 30th of June. So I go in. She thought it was a muscle spasm. She gave me some steroids and stuff. The medicine did help because I was able to move my elbow out and my forearm, and that made things so much better because I felt like I had more strength in that. But after that, I started noting. Well, before I went to the doctors, I went to go that Monday when I was put on medical leave. After I got done making my appointment for that Friday, I go to take a shower, and I notice my right shoulder is swollen. It looks like it was out of place compared to this. Um, but when I finally did get X-rays, they said everything looked good, that there was no dislocation or anything like that. So that's always a plus because, and plus I would have known if it was dislocated because I'd be in a lot more pain. So, they gave me medicine, you know, told me, she thought it was a muscle spasm, blah, blah, blah. So I go for my second uh, appointment, and that was July 14th. I had gotten paperwork from my job, from HR, to have the doctor fill out. This would be what accommodations, what he can and cannot do. So when I went, she first and foremost, she said there's a possibility it could be some type of arthritis, which would make sense considering I've been cleaning restrooms on military bases for over a decade. Um, so I felt like that there is that possibility. Then she fills out paperwork, but part of me felt like my job, because my job is a physical job, you gotta clean restrooms. Something in my gut told me that I need to do workman's comp, because she required that I do physical therapy and I do light duty for 3 months. So I go after my appointment is done. I mail out the paperwork. I call HR. I tell them I'm gonna have to do workers' compensation. So I do workers' compensation. I finally go. I was supposed to, after talking to the lady of workers' compensation, I couldn't do anything because I didn't have a vehicle until that following Monday. So I went Monday because I actually had to go to the airport to pick up my family because they're coming back from their trip. Excuse me. Excuse me. So I go and go there, and I tell him what my doctor said, and I told him, I said I had a gut feeling, so that's why I'm doing workers' compensation. They do a drug test and everything because you got to. They want to make sure I wasn't smoking weed or something like that. So they did that. They took X-rays. He said the X-rays and everything looked good and things like that. Again, he said light duty. He said physical therapy. And he said that if I didn't get better from the physical therapy, that would probably be a good idea to get an MRI. He has stated that there is a possibility as the early signs of my rotator cuff getting bad. And rotator cuff is what's connected between your shoulder and your arm, basically. It's right in the center. That is kind of like, getting slapped in the face, getting the shit into the stick, whatever term is used. Because one, if your rotator cuff is pretty bad, you're gonna have to have surgery. Surgery may not heal it 100%. So I figured, well, if this is the early signs of it possibly going bad, mind you, I'm right-handed, and with doing bathrooms for so many years, over a decade, it kind of made sense in a way. But I just wasn't ready. I wanted to give myself another year because I wanted to accomplish the goals with eBay and YouTube, give myself a year for that. And that wasn't the case. So I get back, and it was weird too. After I got done with that appointment, went to go get my family from the airport, came home, I'm getting a phone call from the insurance company of the workers' comp. She wants to do a phone conversation recorded, asking me about video games, blah, blah, blah. Just basically trying to prove that I didn't get her at work. And I eventually, after that, I don't hear anything about my, return to work or if I'm getting workers' compensation. So I call, and all of a sudden, the original lady for human resources no longer works there, which is kind of weird. The lady that is new had no idea what was going on. She told me that she, the next day, mind you, this was a Monday. So I finally talked to her on Tuesday, and she goes, well, they denied you the workers' compensation, and unfortunately, they can't meet your accommodations. Which by law they would, because I'm protected under the ADA, which is the American with Disability Act. So it wouldn't have mattered if they couldn't make accommodations. By law, they would have to because I am disabled. And the fact that they are a company who hires people who are disabled, yeah, they would have to make accommodations. And mind you, I still have the left side. I can still clean with a left arm. The only thing I wouldn't have been able to do was do heavy lifting. And doctor said I couldn't use my arm no more than 2 hours or so, which makes sense. But you know, I was more like, I think, heavy lifting. But like if I'm moving a mop like this, I'm not putting a whole lot in my elbow. I'm moving more of my waist than anything. And again, I could always get the guy I'm working with to do the heavy stuff, or I just pass on the heavy stuff and do it at another time. My job allows overtime, so I could have done that. But no, they decided to let me go. So as I'm on the conversation with her and another lady that are in the same, I'm on speakerphone, so the other lady can hear me. I try to plead about, well, let me get a clearance from my doctor and I can go back to work. I can't afford to lose my job. Well, we're not going to do that. But then they, in the same tone, they told me I can apply in 6 months. So it's like, okay. So I was explaining to my mother. I said, how does that work? How do I go apply? What are they gonna ask? What are they gonna say? Well, why did you leave? I didn't leave. You guys wrongfully terminated me after I got hurt at work, and I was supposed to get physical therapy and never did. And then it wasn't until later on, of course, I got a lawyer, and then you guys know all about that. One thing I noticed with my handbook was the fact that I should have been put on short-term disability. That should have been something that was offered to me, and it never was. So I felt like I did get screwed over by this company, and now they're trying to screw me over even more because I was getting unemployment. Now all of a sudden I get disqualified. I'm told by unemployment it's because I'm looking for part-time. It wasn't that. It was my job getting involved, because when I got the paperwork about owing, because they were paying me 3 payments, then all of a sudden I get disqualified. I'm told I gotta owe it. Then I'm supposed to have a meeting with them, and they don't show up for this not meeting, but this hearing. And now all of a sudden they're trying to fight it and give a reason why they didn't show up. And I'm gonna fight to not pay that, because this job has already screwed me over. You've prevented me from getting the help I needed to get my shoulder better. You prevented me financially to be able to get myself up and running financially, and you have there's a possibility I may not be able to work because of my shoulder, because I am a liability to other companies. And who is going to meet the requirements because of my shoulders, because I'm limited, because you thought it was best to fire me. And even my lawyer, when he served them, they were like, well, it's not, we denied him because it's not work related. Where's the proof? That's what my lawyer was saying. Where is the proof that you say it's not work related? And I was like, just because you don't see it doesn't mean it didn't happen. It's like a disability. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. And that was frustrating. And then it just seemed like everything would just keep getting worse and worse and worse. And there was no light at the end of the tunnel. Of course there is now, but at the same time, I'm still struggling. I'm still trying to fight this unemployment because I refuse to pay that. I shouldn't have to pay that. Unemployment was to help me because you guys let me go, knowing very well that I needed to get help. So I do the job, I get hurt, and now I gotta pay for that because that's my fault? No. So if things don't work out in my favor with unemployment, I am getting my lawyer involved, and I'm going to sue my former employer for this, because I can't I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to fight. They need to pay that. I shouldn't have to pay that. So I'll let you guys know how that goes when it happens. But that was one of the reasons why I've been trying to do eBay and YouTube. To me, I kept thinking about it. I was like, well, if I had already been monetized, this would have probably helped me a little bit. I wouldn't have been so stressful or be put in the situation that I'm in now. So that would have kind of helped in a way, but I'm still trying to reach that goal. But I did last year, after the situation I had, I applied for Social Security disability, because at that time, it's like, I don't want to work for anybody again. I dealt with so much abuse from these companies. I would be afraid to work for somebody because I was treated so bad. My work wasn't valued. So why would I want to do that with anybody? And with the experiences I had with the jobs I've had, McDonald's, Walmart, same thing. I've just been treated so poorly. And I kind of joke with my father because I always state that in a previous life, I must have been a complete a-hole. Because in this life, I just seem to get the short end of the stick. So it has been stressful, and I guess talking to you guys, sharing that helps me vent a little bit, but also helps maybe potentially others who may end up going through the situation. Um, but yeah, I don't want to make this video too long because we're already at the 30-minute mark, but I just want to say thank you guys so much for being there, for, commenting positive things. I'm not giving up. I'm very passionate about YouTube and things like that, and I do hope maybe within this time next year I am monetized. I am doing eBay full time, and I can kind of stick it to the people I've worked with that my life is better because of them in some way. I mean, that's to me makes more sense. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to give you guys, more of the explanation on the whole story, kind of go full detail. But at the same time, I also wanted to thank you guys so much. It's much appreciated. And yeah, hope you guys have a great day. Got a few videos planned for today. So until then, I will see you guys later. Peace.